Okay, welcome to Coach's Corner with Justin and Ethan. This is episode number 34. I am your faithful coach, Justin.
And I am your faithful coach, Ethan.
Unfaithful.
I was
coach
about to
Ethan.
do it, but you can always
today,
trust on me.
We're going to be talking about the pros and the cons of a little substance, a little pill that some of you may have heard of called Ozempic.
Yes, well, now that it is a pill, right?
It is a pill. Well, I don't
Yes.
know if Ozempic the brand is the pill, but I think there is a semaglutide.
There is, yeah, sublingual or...
So, Manjaro, Ozempic, semaglutides in general. What are the pros and cons to this? Who could it be for? I think the point of this episode here is to not sit here and preach about our bias around weight loss medication, because obviously if we are weight loss coaches, you could see there could be a conflict of interest. We're of course you guys are going to say it's not good.
Right.
And honestly, I think we're going to make an argument for some people that it could be really useful. But anyway, so I really want to look at this objectively and try to think about who this could be good for and who maybe would benefit from just kind of doing the old-fashioned, nutrition and exercise run.
Oh, jeez. That's old news,
The hard
man.
stuff.
It's old news.
It's old news, man. Nobody's exercising anymore, man.
That's the point.
Who exercises and eats good these days? So anyway, so I figured why don't we start with maybe who we feel like this could be good for?
Nobody.
Yeah. Well, you heard it first here, guys.
No, it's, I think it could be good for someone, well, kind of like we were kind of talking, morbidly obese individuals.
Yeah.
Who are just in an irreversible place in their life, I think, which in a sense is maybe never the case. But I think sometimes people do hit a place where the likelihood of them changing before some type of illness or death occurs,
Do you know anybody like that?
I did.
What happened?
They died.
Think I know who you're talking about. Jay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, he wasn't particularly young, but he had two strokes.
45, 50?
Yeah, 40,
Yeah.
I think. I would say, late 40s.
He was about 300 pounds, give or take.
I would say give or take, yeah.
Yeah.
And he used to be morbidly obese, for 450, 500 pounds, and then had gastric bypass surgery, which definitely dropped, I believe, 100, 150 pounds off him, but he was still quite heavy. And then from there, through paying attention to diet and exercise, actually got to a place where even though he was still somewhat overweight, I guess you could say, you would look at him and be like, he's a healthy person. You could just see that he was healthy. He had some solid muscle mass on him. And, even though he kind of was a little thicker in the middle, he just looked.
He was doing the right thing.
Yeah, he looked at the right. You could see it as in his skin tone, and it's just the vitality was there.
Yeah.
But then that moment kind of faded away, and just kind of the weight gain came back in, and he never got quite to the same weight he was prior to his surgery, when I actually didn't know him that far back. But yeah, and then he eventually had a stroke and came out of that pretty neutral. No serious long-term effects from that first one, but then second one seemed to get him. So in that instance, that would be an individual that I think that if this has been a lifelong struggle, and whether or not it was a malleable situation through behavior, if that wasn't changing and you're already past your midlife marker, so to speak, that might be a situation for me where if taking a drug or taking something would decrease the risk of the death that occurred or some type of other serious illness, and it's as simple as that, and the insurance was there to pay for it, he's had access to it, then I think that's a no-brainer.
No-brainer. 100%. And it's I think that it's never a yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad decision. It's a continuous. It's how much, and it's or who could this be good for? And in those situations, I know people, I work with people who this isn't just I'm forgetting to, eat lunch. It's no, this is a pathology. This is a disease, an addiction, a disorder, you could say. And, I know people like that where it's there is no, I don't know if there's going to be another, like, because just working out and eating and trying to eat better just ain't going to cut it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to cut it. You know, you're good for a day or two, and then you're not. And then you're really bad for a couple of days. But the couple of days that you're really bad for, you know, reverses times two all the benefits you got from the 2 good days.
Right.
And so it's just this like vicious cycle that like it can't get away from. I think it's when you observe people, it's an addiction. It's like anything, you know, this impulse they just can't wrangle. And so in that case, yeah, like listen, you know, like take the damn pill, shoot the damn shot, not in the way that it's popular on social media right now, but shoot, like literally stick the needle in your stomach.
Take the injection.
Because like if that can just like stop you from thinking about food, you're just not hungry anymore, and you can just get on with your life and just like be present with yourself and your health and everything, then yeah, I think it's fantastic choice.
Right. And I think that's the thing, especially if it can end a person's like suffering through their relationship to food and eating, right? Because if it's not just simply not making you hungry, but actually changing your brain chemistry and your, you know, your relationship mentally, emotionally to food, you know, it's like, I think if you were like an overweight or obese parent, and it's one of those things that you just, if your plate is like so full and the amount of willpower it would take to overcome those life changes are just really struggling, and you not having that relationship to food and having 20% of your body weight taken away means you could be around your kid, there for your kids longer, be more present with them, be more active with them, play with them. It's like, again, well, you know, it's, you kind of start thinking, because I was really challenging myself to think about this in a way, and I'm like, where are just net positives? Because I think it's, you know, in a way, the quote high road or right answer would always be to eat right and exercise. Like, pay attention to what you're eating in some fashion, and exercise to create the health and vitality in your life that most people are looking for. But life's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry. And, you know, I think to like marginalize it to like, well, just like morbidly obese people, for sure. It's like, well, like where can I challenge myself even more? Like, where is there more gray and more middle to kind of challenge like the inherent textbook, like buck up, do the right thing, you know?
Like, is there a line we cross where they draw in the sand that's like anything past it, it's okay. But anything before that, nope.
Yeah, like you're doing it wrong.
What
like,
is the, you know, the threshold maybe one might be in, or spectrum that one might be in that might benefit,
right? And what are the factors that are doing it, you know?
Yeah Like, I think your other client's doing it pretty well, right?
Well, he actually got off of it.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, and so I was actually going to bring that, you know, him up and kind of the reverse, because I know we kind of talked about it a little bit the first time, but I think, you know, it's almost like if a single decision has the potential to spur more good decisions.
Yeah.
That if the lowest barrier of entry is like the American or Western quick fix dream snake oil sales, like all you got to do here's like, you don't do anything but take this and everything's fixed for you, and zero effort and zero whatever, and that's like the barrier that, or the, you know, that's the access point that they have to making change in their life, and they choose that, then that's still a choice, and then maybe that can be a catalyst for making other choices. You know, in this individual, he kind of was doing it as like an insurance policy. Like, he was determined to exercise.
Like a safety net. Like, he was going to exercise and eat better, but this is like a safety net just so he didn't get tempted and slip.
And just, it was like the goal was so important to him that he was going to make sure it was going to happen no matter what. And he was willing to put the blood, sweat, and tears in, and he has. But it was almost like, just in case I can't, or I don't know, I just like, this goal is important to me enough that I'm going to have this like this guarantee policy.
Yep.
You know, so. But he eventually got off of it because he realized he could do it without it.
And so when he got off of it, did he struggle with appetite coming back?
No, not really.
Great.
Yeah, because he was never really on that high of a dose. And so I think I don't think he was even, I don't know if he ever even went to 10 milligrams or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think
it's like 5 is like the lowest.
No, 2.5.
2.5 is the lowest, but 5 is like the lowest that has effect. That's considered effective. Like 2.5 is kind of considered like almost like when you're tapering after you've already created.
Because everybody I know I feel like they always say, oh, I'm the lowest dose. I'm only on 2.5 milligrams or milliliters.
That's because I think these people don't really. I think a lot of these people don't.
But
really
they
need
report
it.
an effect, which makes you wonder if it's a placebo effect. Or
I mean,
not. I don't know.
no doubt. I think there is an effect, but I think that like it's 5 and 10 is where you really start.
Because these are like you're gonna say. I think is these are also people who are talking 15 pounds, 10 pounds
That's
of
what
just
I'm
like
saying.
vanity weight. You know?
Yeah, they're not actually medically in need of this drug.
Right. It's just I could count calories, or I could just do this.
I'm on the lowest dose. No big deal.
Yeah. And I think that brings me to sort of, when we think about Ozempic, it's like, listen, does it work? And the answer is undisputably yes.
Yes.
It does. And like I said, this can be a game changer for a lot of people, whether we're talking, obesity to the point to where it's morbid, or we're talking, just someone who just has been struggling. Maybe just life circumstances have just got you good.
Yeah.
Like I can think of a couple people that I've worked with over the years that were like traveling businessmen, and they are just fucked. It's like they're flying out Monday through Thursday almost every day. Every single night is a business dinner. These are high-end business people, right. And it's like steakhouses and like they're just like every time you see them, they're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And it's like they're not necessarily like binge eating. They're quite literally kind of victim of circumstance. And so I feel like in that sense, just being able to suppress your appetite to the point where like, yeah, you can sit there and have a great dinner and just eat like a little tiny filet mignon and be totally satisfied, right, and be done with it.
The lobster mac and cheese and all these. I mean, the richest
skip
foods.
all this stuff. So but so what do we know, right? So we know objectively that it works. Right?
Yeah.
This shit does work. It suppresses appetite. Does a couple other things, but I think the big one is it just slows the release of the food from your stomach into your intestines, and so you just kind of feel more satiated longer.
Yep.
There's other things that go into it, but now that it's been 3-4 years that it's been popular, there's been, of course, some studies on this. I think like health and weight loss and training is one of the most studied subjects in the world.
Yeah.
And so you're getting all kinds of people now that are digging in, all kinds of researchers that are running these clinical trials and double blinds. And so some interesting stuff is coming out now. And Dr. Peter Attia, I believe is his last name, who's a big researcher on obesity. I was just watching a video of him and he was saying like, okay, so some of the studies now are saying, here's what's happening. Like in a normal situation, like a normal weight loss trajectory, 75% of the weight you lose is fat if it's done right, maybe 25 is muscle. So if you lose, easy math, 20 pounds,
right,
15 of it's probably going to be fat if you're exercising and if you're eating a good balanced diet. Maybe 5 might be muscle, and that's typical because when you're anabolic, you're building tissue. When you're catabolic, you're losing tissue. You manipulate what type of tissue you lose based off of your training and your nutrition, but you can't. There's no like hard line where you're only going to lose fat. You're going to lose a bit of muscle if you're in a fat loss phase. You're going to gain a little bit of fat if you're in a muscle gaining phase. It's just the way she goes.
It's inevitable.
So let's just say that typically the ratios are like 25 to 75. But what they're finding now is with people who are on a semaglutide, Ozempic, that kind of thing, it's almost the reverse. And so you're losing muscle mass almost the same rate that you're losing body fat. And so you're losing weight.
Right. The scale's going down.
Aggregate weight on the scale. But the composition of that weight, instead of it being mainly fat and a little bit of muscle, now it's kind of like 1-for-1 or more muscle.
Whoa.
And I think it's like what we talked about before in other episodes of like, it's because when people are doing this, they're not training. Protein's the hardest thing to eat for anybody anyways.
Right. It's one of the most satiating foods.
So when you're not really hungry, and but you need to eat, you don't really go for a chicken breast. You probably go for something like, I don't know, like a bowl of rice or some crackers or like some fruit maybe. And so you're just
smoothie.
Yeah, smoothie, because you're not even hungry. You're not really thinking about it. And so that's the big takeaway is that you're losing muscle mass, which is your motor, which is your metabolism.
Right.
Now, here's the other thing about that, is that because we know it does suppress hunger hormones, leptin, ghrelin, keeps those hunger hormones at bay, which is super important because when you're dieting, what tends to happen is those hunger hormones start to elevate as you lose weight because it's trying to get you to eat more food to get you back to your old resting metabolic set point. But now that we're losing muscle mass, that means your motor, your engine that burns fat is now decreasing in power. And so what happens is that as long as you stay on it, you're probably going to be okay. But most people I talk to, anecdotally at least, don't see themselves staying on it forever.
Right.
They don't want to stay on it. They want to get off of it. And so once you get off of it, well, guess what? Those hunger hormones are no longer suppressed.
Yes.
And so your hunger, your appetite comes roaring back just like it was before. The difference this time is you have much less muscle mass on you. 10, 20% less muscle mass, which is your engine. So your appetite's as strong as it ever was, but now you have, 20, 30% less burning ability to metabolize the food.
Right, body's caloric demand
which is
down.
going to just skyrocket you back up to your old weight, but with less muscle mass.
Yeah, especially I could see it's like if you just return to your normal eating patterns that you did, you haven't made any changes, but now your body needs significantly less calories because it's just
your BMR, your base metabolic rate is much lower now because you have less muscle mass. I think the caveat is like your client, for example, who was on a very low dose. His intention was always to get off of it. But while he was on it, he was regularly weight training, hitting his protein target. So that's the caveat. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be where you lose all your muscle. It's just typically the type of person, like the profile of the person who takes it isn't one who tracks their protein and lifts weights. Because if you're doing that, you're probably not needing to be on it in the first place.
That's the thing. I think it's that it's 100%. It's like that's the route that most people take that would be successful. You just wouldn't need the Ozempic. You wouldn't be on it in the first place.
Right.
And to your point, most people are taking Ozempic. They're just not doing anything. At least maybe at first. Hopefully, I think people kind of
they're encouraged to, but we're talking about lifestyle and habits that have not been in place before.
Right.
So it's like now you're getting results without having to do the hard thing you've been avoiding your whole life. What makes you think you're gonna all of a sudden start doing the hard thing you've been not doing, and you're getting the result? So it's like, So I think that's the risk. And again, nothing is a binary. Nothing is this is definitely gonna happen to you. Not necessarily, but lifestyle choices are so important, and it's like. It will that will be statistically the case if you don't eat enough protein to maintain your muscle tissue and then stimulate protein synthesis through weight training.
It's tricky. I mean, I think there's always going to be a compromise or a give and take on both sides in terms of the benefits and the risks. I have an older client who is in a place where he's starting the grandchildren are starting to happen. So he's got a very large family. And I think he was never, I wouldn't call him I saw some pictures of him prior to him taking Ozempic, but I would not have called him obese, but I'd say he was overweight.
Husky.
And he's a little chunky, kind of had the little thick neck a little bit, but definitely you wouldn't look at him and be like, oh, he's like a obese person. He just was he had a little extra on him. But I wouldn't be surprised. We had never actually talked about why he went on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to do it to prevent metabolic disease and just want to stick around for the grandkids and be there for his family and just make a general, health choice towards longevity, especially if it's because I think some of the pictures I saw were from a while ago. On his desk, he's a massage client of mine. And so I could see that he maybe was like a bigger guy for a majority of his adult life. Right. And so now he's on it, and he kind of got to the cliche, lost the 23% or 20 to 30% of your body mass that they're asking you to lose. So he's at a place where he's like, I'm not looking to lose any more weight. I'm good where I'm at. Everybody agrees. They're bringing his dose down, but he's taken up weight training, so he kind of has made this switch. He's somebody that can afford to have a personal trainer, but the issue that he's always running into is that he can't eat enough protein, right? His appetite, kind of like you were saying before, the appetite's so suppressed that in order to actually build the lean tissue that he's supposed to, now that his body composition or quote his body fat is down to a place that's acceptable, that as we know, the lean mass being the most important thing for any individual, but especially elderly individuals or later stage, second half, last
and
third.
The reason for that, just in case you guys are wondering, is because we tend to, get sick when we're older. We're more injury prone when we're older. So imagine two people, one has 20 extra pounds of muscle than the other one, but everything else is equal. Who's going to survive a broken hip more likely? Who's going to survive chemotherapy more likely?
Yep.
If you have more muscle mass, your survival rate is much higher than someone who doesn't. So that's why muscle mass is just so important, which is why being on Ozempic for very long could be dangerous because it does.
Well, and that's kind of saying. So it's like on one hand, he achieved the successful health goal of bringing his body fat down, but now he's having significant trouble achieving the secondary goal of increasing his lean mass, because even though he's weight training, he just can't see, like, the protein challenge is just, and he's doing a protein shake every day. You know, it's like he's finding the shortcuts when he can, and even with all of that, it's just his lean mass really isn't changing or going up at all because he just can't get enough in. And so, it's kind of like, I think there's always going to be a two-edged sword of, even for how effective Ozempic is, right? It's like there's that opportunity for it to kind of bite you as well.
As with anything in life, right?
Right,
just
as
like
it's falling off the wagon.
The dichotomy of life, you know, it's just like, it's like health is not a light switch where it's not one thing. It's an aggregate of all the things.
Yeah.
So just because you don't eat past 7 doesn't mean you're healthy. Just because you drink enough water doesn't mean you're healthy, because it's all of the things. And I think going from 0 to 1 is the hardest and most important step, but it's not the only step.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, you got on Ozempic, you went from 0 to 1, and you made that big change. Now the first sort of mile marker, so to speak, of just getting the weight off, you've done it, great. But now it's like there has to be more. There has to be the next version of it, because the efforts that got you from 0 to 1 aren't the same efforts that required to get you from 1 to 2 now.
Yep.
And so now losing weight is 0 to 1. Recompositioning your body is 1 to 2. And sometimes that is a real constraint point for people, because it's like, but I know, but like I've always been told I have to lose weight, and I did that. I did the thing I was supposed to do.
I've lost the weight, damn it.
And it's like, and you did, and you probably, and you're much better off for it. But now there's other cautionary tales we have to be aware of if we don't then actively work on recompositioning your body with some more muscle mass and strength.
And and that's, I think, where, when I said it was like we've talked about, it's like it's so easy to just be like, oh, Ozempic's the bullshit ways, because I think that no matter what, you eventually reduce the sauce down to the fact that you're going to have to pay attention to what you eat and exercise, no matter what. So it's like, I mean, unless you just take it and you just emaciate yourself to some capacity and you're just thinner than you were before, and that's just what it is, and you just let it be that, and so be it. Like that, obviously that's an option. Yeah. But I think if you're really trying to do it, was it because it's all this thing like the Ozempic face? You've seen this, right? Like all these celebrities, like pictures of celebrities, their faces are all sunken in, and it's like, the doctors are, it's like, oh, but when you lose weight, your face contains fatty tissues, and it's like, but I think like people lose weight, they don't look like gaunt.
When you lose weight fast.
And I think it makes sense now that you were talking about the lean mass going with it. Like all the muscles in your face are going too. It's not just the chubby cheeks and the subcutaneous fat of your cheeks or of your skin and your face. It's like if your muscles are atrophying in your face too, now all of a sudden, it's like people have facial exercises to tone their face, and it's legit, so
jaws are size.
They're like the jaws are size. Like Jim Carrey did a lot of it. He would, there are people that I've seen actually like whole programs geared towards women for beauty for it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's just important to like always look at like there is no silver bullet there, and we every generation we think that we've kind of stumbled upon
the raspberry ketones.
It was raspberry ketones. And listen, the difference, of course, is that like Ozempic is a pharmaceutical that's been heavily researched, and it's not dangerous. I mean, there are certainly side effects. I think half the people who take it definitely feel dizziness or There's all kinds of weird stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
But the real risk you run is just the atrophy. And when you say atrophy, it's like remember, you're losing fat when you're on it. You're losing muscle as fast as you're losing fat because you're just not eating any protein. In the typical case study, the person who takes it isn't lifting weights very routinely.
Yeah.
And so it's perfect. I mean, listen, your body from an evolutionary standpoint, you're at an evolutionary disadvantage to have a ton of muscle mass on you because it requires energy.
It sure does.
So if you don't use it, you lose it. That's the first thing we learn as personal trainers. Like chapter 1, use it or lose. The law of use it or lose it, right?
The age old.
And so, it's just you have to understand, like, if you're not eating, you're not resistance training, guess what? Your body's like, well, let's get all that fucking muscle mass off of you.
Right. Yeah.
Let's lower that metabolism down.
Yep.
So, you're obviously atrophying, or we must be in a prison camp. We must be,
right. It's winter out there.
Walking through the desert alone here. Like, what's happening? Let's get this muscle mass off of us. So if you're going to take it, do it. Learn for yourself. But my recommendation is get serious about your protein levels.
Yeah.
Don't let yourself drift into this like ultra low calorie world because you're just not hungry anymore. There are real consequences to that. Adopt a basic resistance training routine. Doesn't need to be crazy. You don't have to go to the gym and lift barbells over your head. It can be resistance bands at home, but you need to be putting your muscles under tension a few times a week, some fashion.
Yep.
And you got to be conscious of your protein levels every day. And if you can just at least do that, you're probably going to just shift the trajectory ever so slightly at the base. But over the course of 5-10 years, that's going to be a massive difference in trajectory of where you would have been had you not done that versus where you'll end up if you do it.
100%. 100%, especially for a long-term use like that. It's like huge, just that little degree of change will put you so far at a different destination.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was episode 34.
34.
Coach's Corner.
Oh.
With us.
Oh, that guy.
Justin and Ethan. Okay. See you guys next time for 35.
Peace.
Laters.